What do you think? Waffle House Church. Sounds good? How many of you love waffles like I do? And Paul just got us a new waffle maker not long ago. What do you think that's about? Just, can you kind of shift out of your structured image of church? What might a Waffle House church be like? Any ideas? I don't really know, so it's not like I can tell you you're wrong. It would smell good, yes. It'd be a little sticky, a little messy, right? Something to clean. Oh, yeah. You may not have a bulletin in there, right? What else? Oh, Kyle, what else? Free service? Oh, great service. Oh, a whole new definition for great Sunday service. Yes. Warm hospitality. Yeah. Wow. Interesting, huh? Just to begin to get our heads around, what would Waffle House Church be like? I don't know. Oh, Suze. Oh, filling your soul while filling your belly. I like that. That's great. Hang on to that one. That would be a good one. Jerlene.
Waffles offer comfort food. You find comfort food.
Yes, I know. Maybe that's why I like them so much. Waffles are comfort food, right? Ah, what a wonderful place to invite someone who might need comfort, right? To Waffle House Church. Interesting. What was that, Cully? Yes, relaxed. Not so uptight at Sunday. Well, we'll have to see. I'll have to check that out. Grilled fish on the beach at dawn. Would you get up for that breakfast? I bet all the Tongans and Fijians, that's nothing, right? I bet you do grilled fish on the beach a lot. For me, I might be a little more picky, like, what's on the menu? Are we talking grilled salmon or is it sardines? What I'll get out there at dawn for, I'm not sure. But if Jesus is cooking, that's different, right? I'm there. Jesus is the one cooking for us. Well, Jesus was very big on food, both before and after his resurrection. What was the other special meal where his disciples, if you were listening to Jean carefully, where the disciples recognized him in the service, the preparation and the call and the service of a meal, where they recognized him in the meal? It's a really big story. What? Emmaus, right? Remember? They're walking and they invite him, oh, stay with us. And they say it's in the breaking of the bread that their eyes were opened and realized it's the Lord in the very meal itself. Well, who knew that Jesus was such a foodie? What are some of the texts? Because, all of 4 Gospels are full of Jesus eating with people, feeding people, talking about food, right? What are some of those texts that come to mind of Jesus and food or a meal?
Feeding of the 5,000 plus women and children.
Yes. Feeding of the 5,000 plus all the women and children. Yes. What else? Nancy? The Last Supper itself? What else? Kyle? Yeah, that's the Last Supper. The institution, the beginning of the Last Supper. What else?
Wedding.
Yes, the wedding. Jesus at the wedding. And what did he provide? Wine out of water. At whose request? Mom. I love that story. Get up and do your thing. Right? So many stories about food. Have you ever wondered why? Why? We're going to look at that a little bit. And I want to share a word for you. It's commensality. That's a big, weird word. Commensality. It was a word that was used in the Middle Ages, and everybody knew what it meant. Hardly anyone ever uses it today. But it comes from 2 Latin roots, cum, like community, right, which means basically together, and mensa. In Spanish it's mesa, right? Mensa, which means table. So what do you think it means? Basically, to eat together at table. We just use the phrase sometimes, they were at table. What does that mean? Well, it means somebody was eating together, right? Commensality is just part of, not a part of Jesus' ministry, but it was Jesus' ministry. Coming together with people to eat. And it's not really about the food, for those of us foodies. It's not the quality of the food or not even the lobster tails, I think. Well, but maybe in some sense. But it was really about who he chose to eat with. Because, see, Jesus walked his talk. And when I say that, I want you to get that at like some really root level. He didn't go to a synagogue and sit for an hour and teach people something and then everybody went home. He walked his message day and night, night and day in, day out. It wasn't a piece of his life. It was his life. And so choosing who he ate his breakfast and lunch and dinner with was everything about who he was. Now, it might be hard to understand that unless you really understand that in his day, the banquet table was really sort of the main venue of the social order. Everything about the hierarchy and the exclusion and the inclusion of people happened around meals, the banquet table, right? Slaves did not sit with their masters. Servants did not sit with their patrons. Women served men, not the other way around. And no one who was righteous, considered righteous, would ever invite someone who was considered covered with sin to a table to eat until Jesus. In his world, no one did those things until Jesus. I love Zacchaeus. Remember that story? Zacchaeus is up in the tree, and what does Jesus say? Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus, come down, so what? So I can go eat with you at your house. Jesus just invites himself. Breaks the rules. Why? So people can come together. Because for Jesus, if he's at table, this is the most intimate place for him to be in ministry with people, to connect to people, to gather the people he's looking for, the least, the last, the lost, the lonely. He makes this his life, eating with people. Because when Jesus is at the table, it's a table of grace. It's a table of an inclusive God who welcomes everyone, not only to be in relationship with Jesus, but also with one another. Do you see that fullness now in Jesus' life and in his ministry? And his followers continued that outrageous social moray crashing behavior. They continued eating together at table. This is from the catacombs, right? A picture of Christian life. They continued to break all the rules about who could eat with who. Imagine what that was like. At this point, they're hiding because society just couldn't take that kind of, Waffle House church, right? That's not the real thing. That's some kind of gimmick, being together across all these class lines and everything. Well, Jesus' people continued to show this kind of fellowship. And let's just think about, what does it mean if you come together with Jesus like that? It's not coffee hour. It's a practice. It's a spiritual practice of equity. And a spiritual practice of what else? Humility. A spiritual practice of generosity. What else? Of love, of unconditional love. What else was a meal? A spiritual practice of what? Thanksgiving, of generosity. You could go on and on. It was a spiritual practice of beloved community in our language. Eating together, choosing to eat together. I know how some of my most memorable meals are those where folks have invited Paul and I to dinner in their home, or even lunch. One of my favorite meals here at Centennial is something that Lucy Yokota and I invented, which is we have an anniversary every July 1, or as close as we can get to it, where we share root beer float. And we both have to have a milk alternative kind of ice cream, right? But we do it to celebrate being together again for another year. It's so precious to me. That's what Jesus was going around creating for everyone. For everyone. Let me share with you a fresh expression. That word, I'll say more about it in another service, but fresh expression is something that particularly in Great Britain, they are calling all these new ways of being church together. At our annual conference session, Marlon Hall was our keynote speaker, and Marlon is a pastor in Houston, Texas. He's a United Methodist pastor, and he is leading not a congregation, watch for the paradigm shift, but he's leading a movement of people. So they don't call it members, they call themselves the people who are part of the movement. It's called Awakenings Movement. It's a Wesleyan movement. They call them innovators. And he calls himself the curator. Listen to how postmodern this language is. A curator. If you know what a curator does. We may say more about that some other time. But Marlon is leading this movement, and they literally move throughout the city of Houston. They never have one place that they stay in. And one of the things they did was they picked a neighborhood in the city that was kind of a food desert, and it didn't have any healthy, affordable restaurant. So this is something that this movement does. They moved into the neighborhood, they found a property, they renovated it, got it all set up to be a restaurant. And I think it was actually a restaurant they renovated. So there you go. There you go. Fixed it up, made it possible, and then they invited 7 young chefs in the city who had not found investors, right, who were ready to take a risk with their money on them to hire them or to have a restaurant start with them. They got these 7 young people and had them prepare the food at this restaurant. Okay, because this movement, Awakenings, is all about, if you ask them what's their mission statement, they're all about helping people come into the fullness of their being, everyone. And so they invited these 7 young chefs to do their culinary art in this new venue, which they called the Eat Gallery. Instead of the art gallery, it's the Eat Gallery, where these 7 people would present their art, their culinary art, and people would enjoy it. Well, whatever, I think it's the Houston Chronicle, some of their big paper got a hold of this, what was happening, something big was going on in one of the neighborhoods. So they did this big article and interview with them, a big spread, and pretty soon Marlon realized that there were lines out the door now. People coming into this neighborhood to try this. And so he walked the lines to see, why are you coming? And one couple told him, we came to see what a dream tastes like. Isn't that powerful? They were communicating very effectively who they were and what they were about, and more importantly, what they believed God's will is about. Not Waffle House, but the Eat Gallery. So this is one of their little posters, I guess, the Eat Gallery. Marlon said, so when people come in, they don't have to know that we are a religious organization to call it a sanctuary, because they taste and see that God is good with every meal. They didn't hide the fact that they're a religious organization. They just didn't say, come because we're a religious organization. They said, come and be fed and see how we together as community are enabling these 7 young chefs to live their dreams and live out their dreams. Isn't that amazing? And it's a movement. It's a movement. And the innovators in this movement have gone from, I think, 75 to like 700, then 1,000, then 2,000, then it dropped back to several hundred as they have moved through the city, becoming different kinds of things around people's needs. Let me bring you closer to home. Trinity Cathedral downtown has a community dinner. Why? Because they're surrounded with homeless folk, right? So they offer a community dinner. But here in Sacramento, in the what? Farm to fork capital of the world, they do it a little differently. And one of the big ways they do it differently is they only purchase their produce and their meats from local producers. And they let people know who raised the meat, who raised the vegetables. They let people who are eating know that they are connected. They're connected. There's some meaning in that. It's not just feed us because we're poor people, but connect us to who lives here, who else works hard, all of that kind of thing. It's about being community together. Let me share with you, anybody know Grace Presbyterian or have friends at Grace Presbyterian? I'm really impressed with them because they have actually come to a place as a congregation where they have discerned what I call a key mission or a primary mission. They're not just there to be nice people. They've decided what it's going to mean for us to be Christians in the farm to fork capital of the world is to be the congregation that acts on farm to every fork. And so they have wrapped all of their mission and their ministry around that concept. What would it mean for us to provide the idea of farm to every fork in Sacramento and beyond? Well, these are some of the things they do. They created a community garden on their property called Plots of Love, and only organic produce is raised there, and they give that away to the food closets. Plots of Love. Then they also have a new series that they call, I think it's maybe 3 years old, Healthy You. And they've partnered with a health education council here in Sacramento. And they offer different series of like how to eat healthy on a budget, right? They're teaching people the connection between food and health and community. And then at my favorite farmer's market, Leslie, right? They have a CalFresh booth at the, what's it called? I'm trying to think what the name of that. It's the Country Club Plaza Saturday Farmers Market. And they have a booth there where people can trade in their food assistance coupons for scrip that you can use with, at the farmer's market to purchase fresh fruit and vegetables, because that's a real problem for people, particularly in certain parts of our city, right? So they have a CalFresh booth that's there every Saturday, all through the year. Plus, they support not one, but two food closets. One is right there in their Arden Arcade neighborhood, and the other one is a wider food closet in that part of the city. Plus, they also have a relationship similar to ours with the Oakdale Elementary School, where they help with the nutrition for young children there at that elementary school. They also, of course, support some of the broader global Presbyterian denominational work that's going on in other countries around food and nutrition. So they have wrapped their lives around bringing the farm to every fork. I find that very inspiring, very vibrant. And if you look at their website, they don't look much different than the 1030 congregation at Centennial. So these are fresh expressions, new ways for church to not just sit here and wait for people to come and join our thing. That's just not going to happen anymore, Centennial. It's time for us to begin our dreaming and our discernment with the Holy Spirit on what is it? What is that unique thing that God has already invested in us and is asking us to become, so that people in the Sacramento Valley will know God in new ways and will have that intimate experience with Jesus, who meets us wherever we are and feeds us the soul as well as the belly, Suze. How will we do that together? What will be our fresh expression? I hope you will open your hearts and minds to what new thing God may be doing and calling us to be part of through this summer. And please be generous, as our God is always generous with us in all the work that we do. God multiplies loaves and fishes.